Look who's on time today. You know what that means?
Wow.
We're in for it.
Good show.
Yeah,
Good dumpster
good
fire?
show.
Usually that's what that means, yeah. Usually. That or it just crashes in the middle of it. So hopefully
No, you
that's not the case.
you guys were on time the other day. Well, we were on time the other day, and it actually went pretty well.
Yeah. And we recalculated some settings, and yes, last night went without a hitch. So I think we got that glitch worked out. No more F's in the live chat, hopefully. So 2 minutes late. Listen, live chat, 2 minutes late means that we are on time, okay? How dare you all? How dare you all? Tonight we're going to be talking about the moon landing and whether or not we landed on the moon. As many of you know, and as I have told my really good friend Jeranism, we absolutely did not land on the moon. It's a little callback from a year ago. Actually, did I tell you about Jilly Juice, Steve? And her using that Jeranism's video on
no, I knew about that.
as an expo.
Yeah, no, I read Katie's stuff, and as soon as he put that out there, I read that, and I was like, wow, she what she did was she just did a Google search, and she basically found the first thing that came up, and that was Jeranism's, believing that you had actually had the belief that we didn't go to the moon, which was kind of hilarious, actually.
Yeah, sarcasm. So let's
you know
talk
what?
about.
You know what? You know what, Kyle? At least you're getting notable to where somebody would want to Google you, because nobody even wants to Google me. I'm not even worth Googling. But
Yeah.
you're getting to the point where people are worth Googling you. So there you go.
A crazy cabbage lady. I have hit the big time. A lady that thinks that pureed cabbage can cure my gayness and regrow limbs. I've made it. This is high times here. High
It
times.
doesn't work. Did you try it?
That's hilarious.
Are you just satisfied with your lifestyle that you're not even bothered with trying it?
Both. Even if it could 100% cure it, I wouldn't take it.
Hashtag
no.
What
No.
a salty
Sure
cabbage.
cures a whole bunch of other things like cancer and AIDS.
Oh yeah, it cures everything actually. No matter seriously, I think it cures Down syndrome, autism, gay. It regrows your limbs. If you have diabetes, it will cure that. Depression,
Gout.
I'm sure. If she hasn't put that in there yet, we need to tell her that could be an option.
Yeah.
She's just crazy.
Respiratory problems.
What about video game
low
addiction?
Blood pressure.
All of it. Cabbage will cure it
Video
all.
game addiction.
All of it.
Porn addiction, because you're always going to be in the bathroom, won't have time to be watching porn.
So tonight's.
It cures all this by killing the patient.
Yeah, right. That's exactly how it does it. So tomorrow we're going to do. I think we're still going to have a Flat Earth night. I believe there's going to be one flat Earth discussion, but there's also going to be something different. Our Trek 6 Live, who has been on here before, he is an attorney. He specializes in debunking sovereign citizens and their outrageous claims, and Van the Man, which is a channel on YouTube that is amazing if you haven't checked it out. He uploads sovereign citizen videos every week, and they're hilarious. But they have been in a sort of a feud with a sovereign citizen, and I can't say the guy's name. I know it ends with Bay, but he's a Moorish sovereign citizen, and I think we are this close to getting it for tomorrow. And I will keep you updated on that. But I think that's going to be happening tomorrow. So we're going to have a sovereign citizen debate, and make sure that you tune in for that. Because if you don't know who Moorish Americans are, or Moorish American sovereign citizens, you are really missing out, because they think that
It's some good
America.
stuff.
Yeah, they think that America is
I've seen it.
called. You have? They always
Yeah,
lose their.
yeah.
They always lose their window.
They're not
Always.
African American. They're not African American. They're Moorish American.
They're Moroccan. They think that this is not America. This is Morocco. The Indians were not native to this continent. That they are the natural inhabitants of America, and so for that reason, they don't have to abide by America's laws, but they can enjoy all the benefits that citizens do. So when they get pulled over, they pull the I wasn't driving, I was traveling. Do you have jurisdiction?
Am I being detained? Am I being
Yes.
detained?
Do you
Yes.
know his name? Because sovereign citizens, for some reason, they add the suffix "bay" or what's it, "l" to their names.
Moorish
I think
Moorish
that's-
ones do.
Yeah,
Only the
yeah,
Moorish.
they use. Yeah, the Moorish ones. Yeah. So I don't. There's a lot of bays probably out there, and a lot of or L's.
Yeah, I don't know his. I have his name from when
Bay.
Artrexis has been emailing me, but I can't pronounce it. It's too many letters that don't fit well
That should be
together
fun.
for me.
Too many letters.
So,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna give that a listen. That actually sounds really fun.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna be fun. I hope it works out. We're in the middle of. We've almost got him, I think. So you'll see it on Twitter and all that. By the way, if you're not following us on Twitter, make sure you do that. It's at nonseqshow. That's where we update you with all this kind of stuff, and you get to see what's going on. You also get to follow my new thing called the Daily Grinder, where I post a conversation that happens in Grinder. A lot of it, no human
It's a
person
little
should ever
disturbing.
see.
It's a little
Yeah.
disturbing. I'm not gonna lie.
I was asked last week if and this was not without a hey or anything, just right off the bat, would you eat a tiny human person if someone paid you $150,000? That was literally the icebreaker.
I
Of
don't.
course, I asked him if I
get
could dip
some
it
of
in
this
ranch.
stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kyle, have you ever heard of bug chasing?
No. Do I want to know?
Oh, I don't know if this is even acceptable for the show. It's pretty disgusting
Oh,
actually.
that's saying something. Wow.
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
curious.
Well, okay. So I'll just say it very simply. So these are people that fetishize the HIV virus and they want to get infected. That's
Oh,
what they're
I've
called,
heard of
that,
bug
yeah.
chasers.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
heard that.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
gross.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have
Is
heard
that,
of that.
I have so many questions, but I'm not
That's
going to.
horrible.
That
That's
reminds me
horrible.
of this.
New show. Okay.
Content warning, guys.
So
Content-
Jimmy,
this is
Let's
the
get
show,
a bug
guys.
chase on.
Jimmy, Mr. Atheist, sent me a message this morning on Facebook Messenger, and at the end of the show, I'll show you the picture because I have to send it to Dave. But this, what he sent me, actually, Dave, I'm going to send it to you now, and we can just go ahead and get it out of the way while I set up like how we're going to be talking about how tonight's going to go. So Jimmy sends me this picture, and the caption that he put underneath it is, "I have so many questions." And I do too, because when you look at this image, it's gonna shock you, but it's so interesting that you want to know more. So when Dave gets that ready, he'll put it up. But the way tonight's going to work is we are going to be having a discussion on the moon landing. I want to point out first of all that unlike shows previously, the person who will be sort of making a case that we did not go to the moon is not a flat earther. He is not somebody that thinks that the earth is flat. He thinks that the earth is round, and I'm going to let him sort of explain here in just a second the position that he's going to be coming from, and it's not going to be from a place like we've seen before. Dave, you got that ready? Okay, throw it up there real quick. Okay, so this post is it says the image on the telephone pole says, "Bathe in my milk, offered open to men only, soy, almond, or traditional. Use my sponge, I will teach you." And it's got very different images of men in a bathtub with this like 80-year-old looking woman standing beside of it. Take from that what you will, I don't know, but I have so many questions. And Jimmy was saying that we should get her on the show to ask what
I'd
she
pay
does.
for that.
Certain questions probably should never be asked.
Oh,
Well,
God.
This might be one
It
of
is
those.
very creepy.
It's wise.
Okay.
It's a word of wisdom right there.
I want to adopt that grandma.
That's
Yeah,
just
She might be your grandma.
Full
I
disclosure,
wish.
I sent an email. So we'll see what happens. All right, Team Skeptic. Let's start off by introducing yourself and telling people about your channel, that sort of thing, and then we'll let Ace do the same, and then we'll jump into it.
Yeah, so Team Skeptic, I have a flat Earth debunking channel. So I'm interested in addressing these non-flat Earth claims, which is, finally a change of pace for me. So Ace, we've already had a conversation earlier. It seems like it's going to be a pretty comfortable conversation. I appreciate it. So let's get started.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
Ace.
All right, and so just a little bit of intro for me then. I don't know. I guess I'm Ace. I've been around Google Hangouts for way too many years. I've known for Steve for what, 5 years, 6 years almost. We haven't talked
About
much
five,
in
five plus
recent
years, yeah.
recent times. We used to talk quite a bit
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, just like philosophy and science, and find just general discussions interesting. So
Cool. All right, Ace, we're going to let you start us out, and then sort of give everybody a where you're going to be coming from, like you told us prior to us going
Yeah.
live. Like that way, everybody's on the
yeah.
same page.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, unlike most of your guests, I think the Earth is round. I think that the ISS is real. I think that Mercury and Gemini, those missions were real. I think that men have been to low Earth orbit. It's kind of sad that in this day and age you have to affirm that the Earth is round. You can't. It's just not just an assumption anymore. But the question is there seems to be some problems with the photographic evidence for the moon landing. Now, there's we might get into this, which is okay. So maybe this photographic evidence is fake, and that's really not evidence we didn't go to the mate. Some is that this is what we have to go on right now. This is what NASA has given us. This is off of the official NASA website. No photo manipulation being done yet. You get some strange results when you actually look at these images carefully. So that's kind of the gist.
Okay. People are commenting about the NASA poster behind you.
Yeah. Look, I not only have a NASA poster, but I've got a Challenger mug too that I'm drinking from. I mean,
I asked the same.
Don't get me
the same question, guys, about the if is he a NASA enthusiast? And to his credit, he said somewhat.
Yeah. I think NASA has done a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, gosh, getting people into low Earth orbit is, a crazy proposition. The question is, have they been completely honest about everything? And government agencies lie for various reasons. So that's been shown before. But yeah, overall, I think NASA's done a lot of very interesting technological research, for sure.
Well, take us through it. Let's get into it.
Well, sure. So I sent you some images before in the email, and so although I won't be referencing any of the work of Olenek, I forget his last name, but his first name's Olenek. He's the guy that originally made this argument, and he also made a lot of other arguments related to this particular pair of images. But I realized that most of the rest of his argument is a distraction, and really the smoking gun seems to be in this pair of images. The thing is that Metabunk was looking, Metabunk's a really good website. If you guys have spent any time looking into this stuff, they have a lot of people debunking really bad arguments for all sorts of conspiracies, and it's an excellent resource. And so they had a thread on Metabunk where one of the people there created their own version of a GIF, and that's the one that I'm going to be using today, which is not from Olenek, who originated this argument, but it's from an independent source, from Metabunk. And that image is pretty key to the discussion. So I was wondering if maybe that could be shown on screen for a little bit. Sure. As I'm describing.
Dave?
So the one labeled St. George, if you could, St. George. So just to kind of describe as they're getting this image, St. George. St. George.gif.
It's numbered, so they're in the order they were in the email. Is that it?
Oh darn. Well, it's a GIF. It's not. I think that's just one of the images. So it's the one with the blue background.
There you go.
There we go. Now I can't see because of the web viewer. Does that have a line through it, or yeah, that does have a line. I'm not talking about that one. That one has a dot, which we'll get into in just a second. Well, that one's fine. So
the other GIF, Dave?
So yeah, do you have maybe the other GIF, the one that flips back and forth really fast, much faster? Is that one? That's the topographical maps. All right.
I don't
Hopefully we'll
see
get
any
to it
other
eventually.
gift, to be honest with you.
Really, there's one labeled St. George. I'm certain I sent it. There's.
Let me see.
Well, try going back.
There was just those two gifts, and that gift doesn't actually
Okay.
move.
Well, here, go back. Look, that's fine. I can make my point either way. So okay, so the whole point is that this is an image taken at the landing site, and so there is this line across the screen that I drew on this GIF to illustrate that there's this discontinuity, and there's also a dot over this crater that you might see, and so that dot is 6 kilometers away, and how we know that is from the topographic maps that I also pasted, and I guess the audience saw for a little bit.
I can share
so,
that. I can share it.
I've got it.
I can
coming
share
up
it
now.
through my camera. So
wait,
that way,
the
they can...
topographic map named 6km, the one with it's got the keep going.
That's it. I have those three.
No, that's it.
I just sent it. Maybe I just
three?
sent you the St. George one.
That one. Okay, give me a second.
Okay. sorry for the technical difficulties, guys.
That's okay.
So anyway, okay, so just at least for right now, I'll just explain without trying to get to these images, because I mean these images are essentially vital to my argument. I mean, I really can't make the argument.
Is the one that you're the other top the topographic one? Is that the one with the sort of the red shading on it?
Yeah, so it has the I cut and paste the scale, and I positioned it inside of the image between the landing site and then this blue dot that I drew.
Got it. Okay.
So
I'm sending that over to Dave too.
about.
So Dave has the
Okay,
St.
great.
George, and now he has that
Perfect.
one.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. So okay. So like I said, you're gonna see it on the screen in just a second. I took this full topographic map, and I'm sure the links will be provided in the description or in the chat or the show notes or something, right? I mean, these are all official NASA photographs off of the website, and all I did is I merely cut and paste the scale, and I moved it next to the landing site, and I drew a dot above this formation called St. George. It's a crater. Yeah, here we go. Thank you so much. So that blue dot is at the lip of this crater, and that crater is called St. George, and that's 6 kilometers away from the landing site. Six whole kilometers away. It's a little hard to see, but you can kind of see there's 0, 5, 10. So it's right at 6. And so if you could go back to maybe the other GIF really quick. Excellent. So as you can see, that lip of the crater is supposedly 6 kilometers away, yet it has an apparent parallax that belies the fact that feature is not 6 kilometers away. It's more like 50 meters away, not 6 kilometers. So I think that's pretty strong evidence that this image was not taken on the moon, that this was taken probably in some soundstage.
All right, Team Skeptic.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a quick question. Have you actually addressed the Photoshop file that came with that GIF? Have you looked at that at all?
Sure, I opened it up in not Photoshop but GIMP.
Okay, give me 1 second.
That's how I added those. That's how I added all those lines and dots onto that GIF. Yeah.
Give me 1 second. There was a Photoshop file that actually was included with that, and let me pull this up for you real quick.
All
right. So the audience can see it as my camera. I don't know how you're going to be able to see it or not. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Good deal. All right. So let me show you a few things. First off, this is the original file, the original PSD file. Okay. Let me take out the modifications I've made. This is the original PSD file. Okay. Whoops. Wrong one. Let me see. You'll agree with that, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's eliminate that background image real quick. All right, so that we're working with just this image, and let me show you something. So let me show you this. You see the red right there? That
It's hard to
picture
see.
that you're
So
looking
the
at. Okay, yeah, no
one sec.
problem,
So
no
let me
problem.
see
Let
if
me
I can.
let me
Okay,
zoom
there we
in.
go. I was
Let me
able
zoom in
to.
real quick.
Perfect.
Okay, and let me take the blue back out so you can see that it's actually all lined up. Okay.
Excellent.
So that image is a straight line right there that goes all the way across. You see that?
Nice, nice.
That
Yeah.
image that was used to create that GIF was skewed so that you could take points and match them up. And you could get like a basic something that's not supposed to move, that you wouldn't see normally move. Now the camera, the two pictures were taken at different times, and of course it moved during that time. So you're not really looking at it like you're looking at it with your eyes, where you're seeing two things that are relatively the same distance to the optics. You're actually looking at something that's being moved, and it's not in the same angle and whatnot. You can tell that by the lunar lander. They're different sizes in the original photos. I'll pull those up in a second. But just to
Well,
show you
you
that
could.
the skew is not just across the top, it's also across the side. The red box in the back represents a straight line. I just used it creating a box, and I'll pull that up in a second just to show you how I did it. Now you'll notice also here, it's not just skewed in this corner to the right, but it's also skewed up. So then if you follow these lines, like see this one right here started at the corner of the box. It was skewed up. And then if you follow this line up, it skews to the left. So
Yeah,
see,
there's a very
somebody, what
slight
they did
skew,
is,
sure.
yeah, they went ahead and made a transformation of this photo to get get it to represent as close to what you would see in real life, because actually the photo was taken at two different times in two different spots. And for an artist to get that to that parallax, you know, to see what it would be as if those cameras were next to each other, that's what they have to do. They have to do a transformation on the photo and then line things up in the background. This is also why when you do the blink test between them, okay, we'll go up here at this point. When you do the blink test between them, you'll notice that these move. You know, you wouldn't normally see movement like that across the face of the mountain. I'm not talking about this area over here. This is obviously moved. I'm talking about the parallax in the back. You wouldn't see that movement, that much of a movement, if the camera was relatively close to each other. But once you apply the transformation, you're no longer dealing with the original dynamics of the photo. You've actually adjusted the photo, and that's going to cause adjustments away from the point of that you want to show as not moving. And in this case, the point they want to show not moving is the furthest point away, which is this peak right here. And if you'll notice when they do this, this is where they lined the photos up right there. And then it's going to skew everything. The further away from this photo it gets, the more skew it's going to have. So this was the original Photoshop file. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm really glad you have it in Photoshop right now. Actually, could you go ahead and set it to play? Could you just set it to start
you know,
animating?
it's just a flash between the two images. So I'm literally, that's all he did was record his screen or make a GIF or GIF, however you want to say it. Make a
It
GIF.
is GIF. It is GIF. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
GIF.
I call it GIF. So
it's GIF.
But
oh my god, this is tragic. It's GIF.
This is more of a
whole nother
controversy.
show.
This is more controversial than whether we went to the moon or not.
Yeah, this is changed subject now.
It's GIF.
Yeah.
GIF. G stands for graphic.
Now,
graphic is not graphic. It's graphic.
Well, now, so I also downloaded the original photos as well, so you can see that there is no skew on these photos. So they did take this photo and they had to skew it because of the way that optics work. When you move a camera, you've got to do certain things. And
yeah, I agree. There's projective distortion. Yeah.
Exactly.
However, so I don't think that the skew eliminates the problem, though. So I don't know if I was ever clear enough, but the problem with the image is actually at the center of the image, where there would be no projective distortion. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Well, and so the problem is that there's a discontinuity in the parallax, Do you understand? This is why I had that line across the screen with the one labeled crater and 6 kilometer dot. So
Put that up,
there's,
Right.
like I said, there's this line, and there's two little circles where there's these craters, and these craters basically are falling underneath this line. No, oh yeah, wait one second.
the gift, Dave.
Yeah, the GIF.
It's the
Well,
one
that's
that- the
fine.
one that-
That's perfectly fine. No, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. So could you slightly zoom in on the center of that just a bit? Is there some way you could zoom in on that? Perfect. Yeah, keep zooming, keep zooming. And then up a little bit. Up a little bit, right there. Yeah, maybe zoom in just a slight bit, just a slight tad more. Perfect. Okay. So now what I want you to notice is that there's this line across the background between the astronaut and the leg of the lunar module, where it seems that it's literally just a stage floor coming up to a backdrop. That's what I'm talking about, is this discontinuity in the parallax, where there's this line, this shift where the parallax suddenly changes. And that is to me an artificial background, not a natural lunar background.
Yeah, I can see how you would come to that conclusion if you didn't already understand that the original picture had been skewed. At the point that the original picture gets skewed, and we know that it's all skewed to match a certain point, then, and that's what the artist said. And the one who did the original photo, he said that, you know, he picked the furthest mountain to make everything match up to. The moment that he adjusted the photo, it's really hard to use this as evidence to say it should not, that's an artifact that should not be there, but that could easily be an artifact that was generated just due to the skewing to ensure that the distant parallax worked. Because that's how you're going to see more. You're going to see more
you could say that, but you
less
have to provide
parallax for the.
evidence.
Well, I mean, I just did.
provide-
I just provided. I just showed you that the picture itself is skewed. It's not the original photo. Because with the
Sure, but
original
how
photo,
could-
I'm sorry.
How could the skew create this discontinuity? That's the question.
Well, you're going from a you're trying to make sense of a three-dimensional place in 2 dimensions. So when you skew it, you don't just skew the 2 dimensions, you're skewing the 2 dimensions of the picture. But if you're really trying to project that back into its 3-dimensional reality, it's not going to match up the same either way, because you're trying to make sense of 3 dimensions in a 2-dimension a 2-dimensional picture that was skewed.
Okay, but you do.
So it's going to affect the
skew
perspective and.
Well, you do realize that skew is a linear transform, and this is a non-linear discontinuity.
Well, I'm not a professional in optics, and I've done as much research as I could since I got the links from Kyle, and I'm trying to be but I hadn't had anybody show me this Photoshop stuff or nothing. I went and did all that on my own. Now, when you're talking about skewing a photo, you're actually talking about reducing the total size. You're not reducing what's in the photo, so it's not like you're cutting it off on the sides or anything like that. You can obviously tell here that the photo is not just skewed in one direction or it's all skewed together. There's actually portions of the photo that have been skewed in 2 directions. So trying to make sense of this 3-dimensionally and say, oh, this is evidence that this shouldn't line up. At that point, it just makes no sense to me, because I look at the picture and I say, well, this picture has been altered, and there's, and it's not just been altered consistently across the picture. It's been altered in one type of alteration on the top right that's different than the alteration from the bottom right. That's also different.
I don't think that's what. I don't think that's what happened at all. So yes, you can have skew in 2 directions. I mean, you could just have a skew like a parallelogram. That's still a linear transform. And like I said, what we're observing here is a non-linear discontinuity in the parallax.
Okay, but that's still not until you can demonstrate how this is not an artifact of the photoshopping that was done to the photo. Then I'm just not prepared to believe it. I still will stand by the fact that this absolutely fits within what I think would happen if we pulled the photo out and use the original photo, which you can't do because they're obviously taken from different points of view. This is what makes it hard to make sense of a 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional piece of paper.
Okay, but we can see from, so you know that are they called faculae? I forget. So there's these crosses on the image, and they're in the center of the image. There's actually a much bigger cross, and then there's 8 crosses surrounding it, and so we can actually tell the amount of rotation that occurred during the 2 images by just comparing these 2 central crosses. And what you might be surprised about is that it actually, the camera angle dropped more than it rotated. So rotation wouldn't really account for what we're seeing here. And again, these kinds of linear transformations that they're making, these skews, won't account for a nonlinear discontinuity. And again, so well, just ignoring the discontinuity, let's look at the parallax of St. George. So this is supposedly a geological feature that is 6 kilometers away, and I think you can tell quite easily that is no more than about 50 meters away, just from the parallax of the image.
Again, it's skewed so that way. It's skewed so that certain portions of the background will match each other, so you can make a comparison. That image to me is not moving so significantly that you would see the parallax from 50 meters away. I wouldn't look at that photo even before I knew it was skewed and think that was only 50 meters away.
Okay, so that's just, I mean, your observation. But the other thing is you're the one that's now making a positive claim that linear transforms can make nonlinearities, and you keep making that claim.
Well, that'd be
but you
pretty
haven't provided any
dishonest.
evidence.
That'd be pretty dishonest of me to say that and not know what I'm talking about. I've only pointed out the simple fact that the first thing I noticed when I looked at this evidence with a critical eye, the very first thing I noticed was that it was no longer a square image. It wasn't even consistent with, like, say, oh, well, we know he was here, we know he was taking it from here, and this is the transformation we have to make sense of this 2-dimensional image so that they're both of the same everything. I see that you've made the rover somewhat similar, or not you, but the person who's created the image has made the rover somewhat similar in size, but even that shows that there was a significant amount of change relative to the rover. There was a significant amount of change, enough to increase the size by as much as it has.
10 to 20 centimeters. No, well, about 10 to 20 centimeters. That's the estimate, the best estimates we have of those pair of images. So that's not that much of a shift. And again, it's not that much of a turn either. And again,
where are you getting the 10? Can you tell me where we're getting the 10 to 20 centimeters estimate?
Well, we know the size of the rover, and we can tell from the ground about how far the rover is. I mean, from the camera.
Hold on, let me pull up the two full size images, and okay, that's not 10 to 20 centimeters right there. I can even bring them in on top of each other. And hold on one second. Let me bring the rovers on top of each other and see. Let me change the opacity a little bit so we can see through it. Okay, look right there. That's not a 10 to 20 centimeter change of angular size right there. You're not going to get that much of a change for 10 to 20 centimeters when you're as far away from that rover as you are.
You wouldn't expect a difference in apparent angle from a pan. Pans don't change the angle of objects.
Right, the distance I mean, obviously that those 2 tires are the same size. The 2 tires are the same size, and one represents at least 10%. You think it would increase in size by 10% from you think it would increase in size by 10% from about 5 inches of moving towards the vehicle? That's not how
I don't. But it doesn't. That's not apparent in the image.
I mean, I'm talking about perspective here. Like when you're moving towards that, you're saying that there was a 10 to 20. We're just going top to bottom. I'm not worried about the angle that the two tires are at right now. We're going top to bottom. I have it lined up decently. I mean, I can try to get it closer, I guess.
Sure. But... I see what you got. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's whoops, wrong button.
Okay,
all right.
But so I just don't understand. I mean, how is any of this relevant to the discontinuity and parallax that's observable? I mean, so I linked the topographic maps. The topographic maps say that this is Mount Hadley in the background. They call it the Apennines, or there's a few different
Apennine
names for
front.
the mountain range.
Yeah.
So do you agree that this mountain that's in the background is 6 kilometers away on the moon from the landing site?
If you're, I am not in dispute of what the topographical maps say that should be. So I don't have the exact number. So yeah, as long as you're quoting the number that NASA says, or you're quoting the numbers that are off the topographical map, I'm prepared to accept that for your argument. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I think that there's two reasons to doubt that given these images. One is the discontinuity and parallax, and two is the observed parallax. So like I said, the discontinuity and parallax is this line where it seems like there's a stage floor meeting a backdrop. And again, when the camera is moving in front of the backdrop, that is actually causing its own parallax of the backdrop. And so that indicates the distance from the camera. And so there's nothing in these images that would indicate that this background that is present is 6 kilometers away. Everything indicates that it's about 50 meters away.
I mean, you say everything indicates, but I would like to know what that everything includes. I mean, the two images you showed me so far, and I can agree that it may look to somebody as if it's meeting a backdrop, but that doesn't mean that it is meeting a backdrop. We're looking at images that have been altered, and the one that you're saying that it looks like it's hitting a backdrop is where there's just a distinct line that's coming across, basically.
Well, again,
I'm not looking at your image right now. Go ahead.
Well, sure, but you've never made the case that these linear transformations would create the kind of discontinuities that are observed. I mean, you still keep going back to that claim, and it's still just a claim.
Right, but I'm saying that I don't know that that's not the case. You're not explaining, to me why
I told you,
what I just showed you
very
is
simply.
not the. Well, you said it, yes, but explain it. Like, how is it not going to affect that when we've changed the dimensions of the image?
I told you. So,
and we've put the image in a position to where one point on the image.
Right.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Let's do this because I don't think we're gonna agree on the on that image thing. Ace, is the image, is that your only basis for why you think that we didn't go to the moon?
Well, so okay, I guess I should get into this as well. So I mean, let's say for a second that Team Skeptic said, okay, sure, let's assume that this image is fake. So what comes of that, right? And the question, and so I don't think that there is a deductive argument that you could state, given this premise of this image and some other premises, that you can deductively conclude that we never went to the moon. There's all these other options like, they did go to the moon, but the footage got destroyed because of the cosmic particles and all this kind of stuff. And so, thus NASA was forced to recreate these images because of the fact that they were destroyed. That's a reasonable consideration, assuming that these images are fake. The problem with that position is that just means that NASA is publicly lying. They are presenting these images as official, as if they were taken on the moon, and yet, by assuming that they're fake, that concludes that NASA has been lying for decades to the public.
So again, is the image, like, do you have anything? I guess I'm trying to figure out, is that the only basis by which you say by which you think we didn't go to the moon? Like, do you have any other? I'm just curious. I'm just asking. Like, we can go into that.
I mean, yeah, sure. I think you should start with your. I think you should start with your strongest foot forward and keep arguing the point. And if it hasn't been properly rebutted, then why provide other pieces of evidence that could just further distract from the question.
So those two photos would be your strongest evidence then.
Yeah,
Perceived discrepancies. Because, by the way, real
Right.
quick, if I can, you mentioned something that those black crosses, right? They're called registration marks, and what they're used for is for if there's any kind of deformation in the processing of the film back then, because it was a negative, right? So if back then, when you had to actually process some of this stuff, there could have been either deformations in the actual film, or there could have been artifacts that were produced because of the process they used to process the negatives. So that's what those registration marks are used for. So they don't have in the background, especially what you're talking about. So because those are in there, and because the parallax that what Team Skeptic is talking about, I'm not seeing the argument that you're fully pointing forth, because we would expect there to be parallax from those things, the different distance. We'd expect some, the fact that you're not going to have high resolution, right? You're going to have some.
No, you wouldn't expect any. Well, why would you expect visible parallax of objects that are 6 kilometers away? If let's assume even on the far end that it was a 50 centimeter shift of the camera, right? Not 10 or 20, but say a full foot, full 2 feet. Even with a full 2 feet of
small
panning
changes
of
end up with
camera,
large scales the further you go away. Further distance.
Exactly.
Anybody who's looked through a telescope.
Also, it would be different if they're both pointing in the exact same direction or similar directions, but you can tell from that front tire, and I didn't get into covering that the camera actually moved its position, like it was no longer pointing in the same direction. It slightly moved just a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a lot. It was a little bit, but you're also dealing with 3 dimensions at that point, not 2. So when you're dealing with 3 dimensions, you go ahead.
The camera dropped more than it actually rotated. I think it actually dropped, say 3 times more than it actually rotated. So
and even if I concede that point, you're still missing my point. It rotated. The fact that it rotated means that, like Steve said, smaller changes further in the distance. When you rotate, they're going to have you're not going to be looking directly at let's say a 2 degree rotation, right? Well, 2 degree rotation 2 feet in front of you is not very much. You're still basically looking at the same spot, but you take 6 kilometers away and just changing the camera 2 degrees in rotation, that's going to increase a large distance at what you're actually looking at, and you got to take that into account. So the person who put that PSD together, he did it in a way that he could make the furthest objects remain with no parallax, so that he could adjust the thing. He even said it in the file. He said, I chose the mountain peak in the back, and he has a black and white where he shows actual correction, and he shows how the actual matchup brightens the line where the 2 peaks actually come together. I mean, I can pull that back up if you'd like to read it.
Okay, but I still don't understand how projective distortion from axial rotation is going to cause a discontinuity in parallax. What's the argument for that?
The argument is that the picture was manipulated to try to get it to be as close as possible, but it wasn't perfect. And if you see an artifact, you can't just say, well, that artifact is the bottom of the screen meeting the ground. What if that artifact was a result of the skewing of the photograph?
You keep making that claim. You keep saying that a linear transformation can make a non-linear discontinuity. You haven't justified that in the slightest. Skewing is a linear transformation.
Okay. It didn't
linear
appear. It appeared as if it was consistently skewed. It appeared as if it was skewed to match the photo, to try to get 2 photos to match, which is what the guy said he did.
Sure, that's still linear.
Well, hang on. A linear transformation is when you have X, Y, and Z where they're all going to be equal in their transformation. So you don't have a skewing along the X-axis or Y-axis. So you don't have some kind of parallel. Anything like that is going to be. So a transformation just means that you're going to be a linear transformation. Just means you're going to have equality in the transform, and you can solve it with a set of linear equations.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Steve. But the whole point is that I don't understand. I mean, again, you were appealing to very, very, very tiny changes that were done over the edge. I mean, not just the edges, but the entire image, right? So these are very slight, minor shifts that are happening to the entire image. I just don't understand why you think that this very, very minor shift, these skews, would produce this.
How far away was
this
the
parallax.
St. George crater? How far away was the St. George crater?
Well, the ridge, the upper ridge of it is 6 kilometers away.
Okay, so there's the reason why a small degree of change will make a bigger difference. You're not talking about necessarily parallax at that point. Yeah, you're not talking about parallax at that point. You're talking about having to take something that was rotated 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees, whatever you want to say, but at 6 kilometers, and then you're going to have to take that and skew it and twist it so that it matches, so that the camera angles look as if they're coming from the same direction. All that. What I'm telling you is that I'm not convinced right now that could not be an artifact of the guy making the change himself and then blinking between the two and saying, "Look, this is a transformation, or this is an artifact that shouldn't."
Why didn't you test that though? Why didn't you go into Photoshop? You've got these two images. Couldn't you just put them into your Photoshop and not apply any of these skews and see that this discontinuity disappears?
But then you're not looking in it's not parallax at that point. You're not looking in the same direction. Now you're looking in two opposite directions. The point of the transformation was to make it appear as if you're looking in the same. The point of the transformation was to make it appear.
Neither of the images are looking in opposite. I mean, I don't want to take you too literally, but I mean they're looking in almost the same direction.
That you nailed it right there, almost, but not completely.
Yeah,
and it's these minor changes but these minor changes. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to tell you. Okay, you're trying to tell me he barely moved. I'm trying to tell you that there's even if it's 10% difference on barely moving, that means that this rover is maybe 2 meters away. Okay, that's it. They're not 5-10 meters away because they're not moving 2 centimeters or 5 to 10 inches to get that much of a angular size change. That this tire, the first tire, or the one that's slightly less, is slightly tilted towards you, and the other one is slightly tilted in the front. I put planes down on these and matched the planes up. Now, when you do that, it's very, very slight, very little. Okay, but you're looking at something that's 6 kilometers away. You're making the assumption that you're looking at a backdrop that's 50 meters behind you, and there shouldn't be that much change.
I'm not making that assumption.
No, this thing is
not making that assumption.
Well, okay.
I'm inferring that from the evidence.
Okay, that's incorrect by me. You're inferring it from the evidence. I'm telling you that to me, it's completely consistent with what might happen if you skew a photo to make it fit what you want to make it fit. As I showed in this picture over here.
It could. That's a big if. That's a big if. Okay, again, you haven't demonstrated that in the slightest. You just keep bringing out this tired claim. I mean, at this point, that claim is very tired.
But it's still not been refuted. You've just said that it's possible and that it's possible.
No, I didn't. I explained to you. Look, I explained to you that there is a nonlinear discontinuity in the parallax of where the stage floor meets the backdrop, and that that's nonlinear, and that could not be caused by a linear transformation such as a skew. So I did. I responded to.
Okay, that so was the exact what I'm telling you, if you brought up. Okay, look, when he matched it up, when the artist matched it up, he matched it up to this top peak back here. Okay, I can go to the actual website where he talks about what he did for this. He matched it up to this peak. Everything he did was to keep this ridge line the same. That's what he did. You can actually see it when you do the blink test. That ridge line doesn't change. Okay, he had to skew the photo so that ridge line remained the same in both photos. That's what he did. He says he did it. Now, if it makes something way over here look funny, just like it made something way up here look funny, that's a part of the art. That's an artifact that's going to happen when you adjust the photo. He said it. Now, how is he getting the ridge line so perfectly lined up and everything else like that in photos that are in opposite directions and taken from different distances from the objects?
But they're not taken from opposite directions. They're taken from
Let me ask you
almost
this.
identical
I think
directions.
I'm kind of getting a little redundant here. So let me kind of move it along
This
if I may.
is.
How first of all, I'm just kind of curious in this particular photo, and let's try to move on to some different evidence because this is not going anywhere. How much you think it's not actually
wonder
skewing?
why.
I think it's skewing. How much difference from one camera angle or position do you think there is to another from the camera itself with respect to the lunar module there or the rover?
So the difference in camera angle, like I said, it's a few percent. We agreed. I mean, anywhere between 2 degrees to 5 degrees. I'm
Okay, and you've actually and do you know the distance from that to the furthest peak?
The furthest peak? Oh, I'm not exactly sure. It's probably 8 kilometers away.
Okay, because I would be curious before we go to the next thing. I would be curious if you worked out any of the math on this to actually see what the difference in parallax would be from a minor slewing of the camera from here to there, because it looks like it actually was not just moving this way on the X. It looks like it was moved a little closer too. I mean, or moved far away depending on the photo, your perspective on that. But it looks like there was definitely a difference in not only moving closer away, but with just this way, right? So I would be curious to see the math involved in that to say, okay, if this was the case and the peak was this far away, what would we expect to see? Because your analysis on this, first of all, is losing most people, but unless you actually show what we would expect to see in a photography program using mathematics, I don't think it's really going to be a substantive argument.
Well, I mean, I actually even did my own photogrammetry of this images, and I didn't want to bring this up, but I actually did what's known as a 3D model inference. So I took these two images, put them into off-the-shelf photogrammetry software, and I generated my own three-dimensional model of the entire scene, and it lined up with exactly what I'm saying. Now the thing is that I mean, obviously photogrammetry has its own limitations, but I'm just not seeing. I mean, any of the arguments that I've put forward so far being addressed.
Can I ask you a question then? Because this comes from the website that the Metabunk website, and let me pull up the name of the guy. Okay, so Celine Kaguya. Oh, well, I guess this wouldn't actually apply because you actually believe that we can go there. Okay, well, no, this does still apply because Kaguya, I believe, and forgive me if I'm saying his name wrong. He did an analysis on the Japan's laser mapping of the lunar surface. And when the laser mapping, the 3D mapping that we didn't have the technology time when they put out these photos, when they released the photos to the press or to the public. So we didn't have 3D mapping at the time, but that when JAXA 3D mapped the surface of the moon, they came back and did a the topographical rendition, and sure enough, it matched exactly to what we see in the photos. Now, how did they know in 1969 or 71, whichever one it was, that I guess this would be 72, right? Apollo 15.
Oh man. That's
okay,
an easy argument.
So what? Hey, okay, go ahead and answer it. Don't, you can laugh at me, but go ahead and answer it. I didn't have the exact
they had maps of the moon already at the point. They were actually even making 3D models of the landing sites. I mean, how else could they plan the mission if they didn't have detailed topographical maps of the areas? So they already had detailed topographical maps.
They didn't 3D map they didn't 3D map it. They didn't have 3D mapping technology.
So
how would they have known where the craters were if they can only see it in a two-dimensional picture from above? I mean, they can use parallax, of course, to determine that, but
because you take photos from a satellite. You take photos from a satellite at different. You take photos from a satellite at different times. So if you have an oblique angle where the sun is just barely shining over the surface right at sunset, they'll actually accentuate the differences, and you can tell. You can tell things like crater detail and that kind of stuff from that kind of image. So they had a satellite that was flying around the moon, taking images at different points in time, and from those images, they were able to infer the the surface of the moon. And it's a simple stuff. I mean, they had to do this. How else could they plan the mission if they didn't? Anyway, so. I mean, in the time that you were explaining that, I actually opened up these two images, and I just sent it to Kyle. I made a brand new GIF without any skewing, and actually it looks even worse. It took me about 30 seconds to make this GIF, but again, it being skewed, I just sent it to you.
Is it the one with the yellow thing, the little yellow orb that's moving around?
Well, let's get into that. Let's get into that. Could you put that on screen?
Yeah, give me a second to
Perfect.
Send this to Dave. Dave, I'm forwarding you the
you
email.
mentioned. So you mentioned the JAXA data. So I actually took the JAXA data. There's a 3D model, and I made a GIF. I actually placed the camera right at the landing site. I faced it in the direction that it's facing in the images, and I took there's this yellow ball. So the diameter of the ball is 300 meters. So think of something like the size of an oil tanker, or like a circus tent, like a really, really, really big circus tent. And so what I did is just to give a perspective understanding of the enormity of this area, how far 6 kilometers away, I had this ball basically roll around the surface of this JAXA 3-dimensional model. And I think that clearly illustrates that the enormity of the area that is supposedly being photographed is not being captured by these images.
Okay, Dave, that you should have that. Whenever you do, you can put it up.
This unskewed.gif.
No, the one with the yellow orb.
No, yellow. Yeah, 300 meter ball.
I don't have
the unskewed one. The unskewed one I just made just now. It's, to be honest, it's not the best thing, but I mean a basic optical transformation.
It says
basic
what?
Optical transformation like that.
It went through. It sent.
I got it.
But yeah, I mean, so Team Skeptic, you keep appealing to this skew, somehow creating this discontinuity where you have what seems to be a stage floor meeting a backdrop. But I mean, how do you create this kind of scenery where you see something very obviously like this, and if I move my hand back and forth, you kind of see what you're seeing there. You haven't explained in the slightest.
Are you talking about for that image? I already told you. Are you talking about for the yellow? Okay, for the GIF, I've already told you it's until you can explain how that works. Because I'm telling you right now, the photograph, as per the author, was matched up so that was altered so that the ridge line matched up to give you that perspective of what the ridge line looked between the two cameras, making those the same.
Okay, but I'm not talking about the ridge. I'm not talking about the ridge line.
Okay,
I'm not talking about the ridge line.
So you skew the photo so that works, and when you do that, it changes other things in the photo. I don't get how you're saying that the change cannot possibly be the explanation for why you see this artifact.
But okay, so all you've done is you've just said that they've done these linear transformations, these very simple linear transformations, which is just skewing, and you're saying that somehow that will create an image that makes it look like this, where there's a backdrop back here with a stage floor in front of it. I mean, that's what you're seeing in this GIF.
That's what you see. I don't see that. I don't see that. You see that, but I don't see that.
So you're denying that there is a discontinuity and parallax, even though it's measurable.
I just don't believe. I don't believe your explanation. No.
Okay, so you do see it, but you just don't believe my explanation. Okay,
no,
so now
I see that something in the photo. No, I see that something in the photo might not make sense to.
You just said you didn't.
A camera. Don't put words in my mouth. Come on, man. I told you that yes,
I do not see a discontinuity.
Hold on.
That's what you said.
Let me speak.
Okay.
What I said was, I can agree that you see something in the photo that you says is the bottom of a backdrop meeting the ground, and I'm telling you, to me, that does not look like the bottom of the backdrop meeting the ground. When looking at the photo with a critical eye and pulling it up and seeing that there's these obvious alterations to the original photo that obviously make one little segment of the photo match up, doesn't change things in the other directions. Okay, let me ask you this question: why was the photo skewed at the bottom? If they could make if all they had to do was skew it at the top, why was it skewed at the bottom? Why didn't they just skew it at the top and move the mountain?
Who knows? Look, I didn't make this image, so that's what I'm talking about. So this is a 300 meter diameter ball. This is a very, very, like I said, think like the size of an oil tanker or a very large circus tent, and it's rolling around the surface, and you can see how far away it goes from the camera. This is a very, very large area, and it's quite clear from the official images, from these high resolution images that they're taking, that that's not represented. It's a very small area. It doesn't extend further than 50 meters.
That's your interpretation.
That actually no, it's not my interpretation.
That is your
like
interpretation. Absolutely.
No, we can go and we can look at pixel by pixel. We can go and look at pixel by pixel and look at the displacement of the background images. And we can see that there's that line that I illustrated where above there's a parallax of a certain magnitude, and underneath it a parallax of a different magnitude. And that's very simply explained by stage 4 meeting a backdrop.
Show me.
That is very difficultly explained by a 6 kilometer image.
No, because when I look at the other two photos that are not skewed, it does appear that the furthest peak away is about the same size, which would relatively be the same. That's the furthest peak in the distance, and everything else appears to be a different size. Now, if I take that and I say, hey, look, I want to make this one portion of it all match up, then I can go and make that one portion of it all match up. And you know what it's going to do? It's going to fuck the rest of the photo up. So you know what? I can go down and stretch it and try to make everything else look like it appears to match up. And that's what he did.
This is all just conjecture.
Match up. It's still
this is all just conjecture.
And it's conjecture from your point. It's a conjecture from your end too. You're just saying that it could. Hold on. You're just saying that the backdrop is 50 meters away. You already know this. Demonstrate it. Prove it to me. Prove to me that backdrop cannot be anything but 50 meters away, without a photo that has been altered by some guy.
I wasn't. Sure, like I said, I wasn't wanting to go into this, but like I said, I did my own 3D inference of these two pictures using off-the-shelf photogrammetry software. And the PDF that I generated and the 3-dimensional model that I generated demonstrates that fact. Now, I mean, I don't want to go into the specifics of photogrammetry and 3D inference and that kind of stuff. I mean, I think that's immaterial to the discussion. What is important to the discussion is the fact that is your claim that you keep saying that this discontinuity can somehow be made on accident by some guy skewing the images. And again, you just keep repeating yourself over and over again. And then you said that you didn't even you didn't even look, just one second. And then you said that you didn't see the discontinuity. And now you're saying the exact opposite, that you do see the discontinuity, but that you just don't agree with my explanation of it. I mean, what is it? What is your actual argument?
I think you're both repeating yourself at this point, and yes, I think the audience is kind of noting it well. Before we go to the next thing, can we just flash those two GIFs one more time, real quick? Is that possible?
Is this what you're talking about?
Zoom in on that? Yeah. And then zoom in onto the center.
And you're saying something is skewed, okay? And skewed is a transformation on the horizontal, so it's going to be kind of instead of remaining with the proper straight up y-axis, it's going to be either off to the right or off to the left. Okay, so that's what a skewed would mean to me. What is exactly being skewed here? Because it looks like it's not actually. I don't see anything being skewed. If it was skewed, then anything that's going to be orthogonal to the ground is going to be not orthogonal any longer, right?
That's exactly right, Steve. That's exactly right.
So what exactly being? So
like I said.
Few times is confusing me.
Well, so Team Skeptic did rightly point out that these images were very lightly skewed, and he's trying to explain that this discontinuity that the audience is seeing right here, where it seems like it's a stage floor meeting a backdrop, is explained by this very light skewing that a bunker on Metabunk did.
That's if it is skewed, I'm not saying it visually, but I'll take their I will concede there might be a little bit of skewing. I just don't particularly see it. You'd have to compare verticals in order to determine if they're skewing.
Can you pull up my camera again? Let me just show you what I saw, Steven. You can tell me what it is, because I mean I could be describing it wrong. So let me show you. Okay. So
skewing is literally a change in the vertical. If you have a line that's going orthogonal to the ground, that is going to be like the Leaning Tower of Pisa would be something that's skewed.
What would this be right here? So they took the image and they just dragged it down here. They didn't. It's not just a linear. It's not the same down here as it is up there. Obviously, see the image runs to the bottom, but it's on this end instead of it being here. They just pulled this in here. Then down here, they couldn't get it all to match up without all this stuff because of the perspective and whatnot. So they brought this image in up here. Now, if you go and you look, all these images, all the footprints, everything is off. Okay, everything. The only thing that's not off in the photo is this area in the distance,
it just
right here.
The camera was moved away from them a little bit, or closer, depending on when the things were taken.
I mean, if you look at it, right, even the top of the crater, right there, which is not too far. It's closer than this area, right? Look at this. It's still. Oh well, hold on. I'm sorry. Did I not do the right one? Oh crap! What did I do? I might have moved my picture actually. Yeah, I did. Hold on, let me get it back to where. Okay, so let me get back up here where I think I accidentally moved it. All right, yeah, there we go. So looking here, okay, go back up in this. So the only place that's not going to move on the entire picture is right here. Everything else you'll see it gets more and more movement. I'll stop using the word skew since I'm not an optics professional.
I could be wrong on that, but I know what skew means. I just don't see anything being skewed, because if it was skewed, then those antennae would be angled.
Yeah, well, the way for me to adjust the original photo to get it to match this, the term it used was skew, so that's why I'm calling it that. So, but if you'll notice right here, even up on the further you get away from that point, there's going to be even slight movement in that shadow right there. So the further you get away from the one point that is up here, which of course this area down here is further than this area right here, you're going to have some kind of movement.
Yeah.
It's not a lie.
I'm not quite seeing Ace's argument either. I'm sorry, but anyways, what else you got for us, Ace? Let's move on to part 2 of your argument here, your secondary data. Ace? Uh-oh.
I'm here.
You rage quit?
Well, we got you here.
Ace disconnected at 10:07:34 seconds.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I'll stick around and see if he's joining back. I don't feel like it was an aggressive conversation. He might be getting frustrated because. Am I wrong, guys? Am I wrong? Because if I am, please correct me.
Yes, we didn't go to the moon.
He's coming back.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Excuse me for that. I apologize.
It's okay. We thought you
got skewed. Yeah, Ace got skewed.
I apologize for that. Yeah,
we all got skewed.
I got.
So we were moving.
Don't want this information out.
Yeah, we were moving on from the photos because we after an hour and 5 minutes, neither of you two are going to be on the same page with that. So I'm hoping that we can move on to the next bit of evidence that you have for why we didn't go to the moon.
I wonder why we aren't on the same page. I think that you at least be able to get on to the same page with material facts.
No, it's like this. It's like this. If we have somebody who believes that let's just take the flat Earth for example. You're going to have two people, one that thinks that the Earth is flat, one that doesn't. They're going to be presenting evidence. Neither of them are ever going to come to the conclusion or the same conclusion on that evidence. The important thing is that you've put out for the people watching your stance on that, and it's for them to decide now. I'm hoping though
not only that, but I think I've shown pretty easily that Team Skeptic doesn't really have a counter argument for this. I mean, he's made some pretty wild claims and hasn't provided any justification.
Sure, they'll be the judge of that. Yeah, they'll be the judge of that. You know, you have to leave it up to them. But we want to move on to a secondary piece for why you think we didn't go to the moon, so that we can. That's just beating a dead horse, and it's not good meaning.
Well, I was just hoping that that's the piece of evidence that I was hoping to address, right? I mean, like I said, I believe that I've addressed every single last thing that Skeptic has brought up, and Skeptic has left multiple things on the table that I've put forward that he hasn't given a reasonable resolution to, and I'd like to focus on that fact rather than going on to some other piece of information that
let me ask you a
Skeptic will
question.
misunderstand.
Let me ask you a question. Is that your only evidence for why we didn't go to the moon?
No, that's just the piece of evidence that I was interested in discussing, because I think, again, you start with your strongest foot forward, and I don't, like I said, Skeptic has made some really wild claims, like how these photographic artifacts are what's actually at play here, and he's make that claim, but there's been no justification offered at all. I wonder why. I mean, is it anything other? Wait. Is it anything other than a claim?
I have a feeling, Ace, that it's your only evidence for why I didn't go to the moon. Something tells me that.
That's why I want to ask this. Ace, if this was a court of law and that was the only evidence you brought to the judge, do you think any judge in the world would be convinced enough to say that we didn't go to the moon? I mean, be honest here. If this is your entire argument, is that enough preponderance of the evidence for a judge to overturn? Well, it's a straightforward question. I mean, just answer that. Is that enough or sufficient evidence to any rational person?
I already answered that question. I already answered that question maybe even a half an hour ago, where you could have all these post hoc explanations, such as, oh, the photographic evidence was destroyed, so they had to recreate it, et cetera, et cetera. So sure, there's all these kind of post explanations you can make.
Ace,
I'm not. Let me. You want to try to ask it, Team Skeptic? You know what I'm asking.
Well, okay, yeah. So here's what I'm saying.
I agree with you.
Okay, hold on, Ace. Let me tell you this. Let's say that I came in there and I said, all right, my client, right? My client, he didn't do it. He didn't kill it, and that's my position. Here's the evidence I have, right?
I know.
And I look at the evidence and go, hold on, and I look at the evidence and say, but this doesn't explain how, when I see inconsistency in your evidence, and then you go, yeah, but I say he didn't do it. You didn't explain how the inconsistencies I pointed out in the photo are actually inconsistencies that we should expect to see with a backdrop 50 meters away and a slight 10 to 20 centimeter. You yourself, are you now not saying that it does not appear as if there's an inconsistency, an artifact on the bottom that looks like? Okay, so now you're saying that you're not? Okay, well, yeah, exactly. I didn't like when you tried to put words in my mouth either. So listen to what I'm saying real quick.
Right.
What I'm telling you is that you said, hold on one second. The point that you just now said that you didn't see anything, right? You just said, I didn't say I saw any inconsistencies, but you just did say that 10 minutes ago when you were like, it looks like a backdrop hits the ground 50 meters away.
I said,
didn't you point that out? Isn't that the whole point? Okay, so now you've said two conflicting things. Just the way you put words in my mouth, I'm going to put them in yours.
No,
so don't do that to me. I'm not going to do that to you. Okay, don't do that to me. I'm not going to do that to you. What I'm telling you, yes, you told me. I said, listen,
I'm talking now.
Okay, what I'm telling you, I don't believe you. Okay, go ahead.
Good. I'm sure you're fair to not believe me. I just don't think that you brought reasonable justification for the claims or any counter arguments.
Ace? Let me ask you this question: What would be the motivation for lying about going to the moon, and how would they pull that off with so many people needing to be involved?
Okay, well, like I said, I explained to you one possible motivation, such as the photographic evidence being destroyed on the way back. That's one possible motivation. I mean, the number of people watching, I mean, that's a totally separate question. I don't know how that's relevant to the evidence.
No, not the number of people watching. The number of people that would need to be involved with a massive cover-up like this.
Sure, I agree that there would be a variety of people that would need to be involved, but I just don't understand how that addresses the evidence I've brought. I mean, are you going to just address the evidence, or are you just going to wipe it under the carpet and just pretend it's not there and try to go on to the next piece of evidence that you can just wipe it under the carpet again?
Hold on. You keep saying that, and don't get me wrong. I think that I think you're a nice guy, so I'm trying to be as patient as I can, but my patience is becoming more and more skewed. We get the fact that you don't agree, don't think that Team Skeptic has addressed your photographic evidence. However,
yes,
we have to let the people who are watching decide that. And I'm hoping that you didn't come here with just that evidence as your only reason for thinking that we did not go to the moon, and I'm becoming more and more convinced that that is the case. I would like to hear another reason why you think we didn't go to the moon. If you don't have one, then just admit that you don't, and that's your only reason for questioning it, which is fine. I'm just wanting to know.
I mean, it's a puzzle piece, but the whole thing is it's irrelevant whether I have pieces of evidence that I'm willing to argue, which I do. I just think that they're completely irrelevant to this piece of evidence. Look, if you think that you have an argument that's better than Skeptic's, either of you, Steve or Kyle, I'd like to hear it at this point, because I mean, Skeptic doesn't seem to have. I mean, he's appealing to these very strange things that don't seem to add up, and he's just asserting them as if they're fact. When I've explained very simply why the things that he's claiming can't be true.
Well, I didn't assert anything as fact. What I said is I looked at what you gave me as with a critical eye. The very first thing I noticed was that there was a transformation done on it, and you didn't. You didn't even know that until I pointed it out. You actually sat there and was like,
There's clearly a transform.
So you didn't even know.
No, I didn't.
Okay, but you didn't even know that was there until I pointed it out, and you were probably convinced at that point that that was an original photo that was lined up and this and that. Come on now, you know what I mean?
I did read.
Like,
I read the Metabunk.
And you failed to explain it. You just said it's because it does this. That's fine. Flat earthers say the same thing about relative density. When we say, why do things fall? They say relative density. We say, well, how does that work? Explain it. Well, it's relative density. Oh, well, it's that you don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't work like that.
I mean, it seems like what you're doing. You're just saying skew.
I don't believe you.
It's all just skew.
I don't believe you because. Okay,
I know you don't, but it just seems like you're.
You didn't even know there was a transformation in the photo until I pointed it out to you, and then you just tried to say this is perfectly normal and expected. Why didn't you know that?
No, again. So look, because you're doing the same thing that flat earthers are doing. You're just saying skew, skew, skew. You know, like buoyancy, buoyancy, buoyancy. You're doing the exact same thing.
Where do you think these pictures were taken?
I mean, not on the moon. Who knows where they were taken?
Like, do you have an idea? Yeah, you think they were done?
Yeah, it was Stanley Kubrick. Come on, everybody knows that.
Well, you know what? I'm going to throw you a bone. Actually, Sean Clifford and I were having this discussion just a couple of days ago, and he was arguing that in his experience, that this could actually be done in a soundstage. So you might want to get him on your side on this one, because he's not. Now he doesn't believe that. He doesn't believe your side. I mean, he believes we went to the moon. He just thinks that we did have the technology as far as sound stages. Because he's obviously an actor, he knows about these things, that to actually would have done this.
Reasonable.
Now, I think it might be reasonable. I explained to him that there are other extenuating factors, such as the fact that we were getting telemetry data from space. Russia was getting it as well, and we were not exactly friends with them at the time. We're still not. And of course, if we were fabricating this, they would have noted this, because there was a bit of a kerfluffle, to use that word.
So actually, so Steve, I mean, you know a little bit about probability and statistics, right? So you know that like the conjunction of two probabilities is less likely than either of the probabilities, right?
Yeah. I mean, I took stats, but I really don't just like probability theory.
Okay. So now we have scenario one, where there's a rocket ship with radio signals coming out of the rocket ship, right? That's scenario A. And then you have scenario B, which is a rocket ship with radio signals coming out of the rocket ship, but there's human beings on board, and they came back safely. So which one's more likely?
Well, see, but you're doing it in a vacuum. You have to take into account other factors.
I know. Look, I know I'm oversimplifying. I'm oversimplifying things, but I'm simplifying it to illustrate the point that I'm saying. I'm simplifying it to illustrate the point that, okay, so sure, yeah, they had these radio signals coming from this rocket. I mean, that's no proof that there were people in the rocket. That's just proof that there were radio signals coming from it, right?
But again, Russia, if Russia thought for a second that we were fabricating this, and that we did not have people on those modules, then I think they would have gone way out of their way to try to expose us to the rest of the world. It would have been a geopolitical nightmare.
Why? I'd like to keep away.
How did we get?
Look, I'd like to keep away. Well, okay, so since you guys are wanting to discuss other things other than the images, so about the Russia thing. So the thing is that I don't think that, I mean, you can do like a possible world analysis, and you can say like, okay, is there some possible world in which Russia kept these things secret and then used them in other ways, such as like blackmailing the United States rather than just releasing it to the public.
That's
a
conspiratorial.
That's well,
Yeah,
sure.
Okay,
so-
but okay, I'm just wait. I'm just asking you whether or not this is possible. Yes, of course
Yeah,
it's possible
It's
that
possible
Russia.
aliens fake
Okay,
it
so
because they didn't want to discover the moon.
yeah.
I mean,
Okay, but so
these are just very
now
possible.
the question is, is about likelihood. What is the most likely possibility that they do come out and they just tell the whole world, and then all the blowback and chaos that happens from it? Or is it more likely that, assuming that this stuff was faked and that they figured out that it was fake, that they would use it to blackmail and strong arm the U.S. into doing what they want? I think it would be much more
let me
likely
answer that.
the latter scenario would be likely.
Let me give you a governmental answer to that, because me and Steve both we were both in the military. So I'm sure Steve's been a part of a display of power. Have you ever been part of a display of power presentation, no. Steve? Steve, being in the military, have you ever been a part of a display of power presentation?
Yeah, well,
it's where we bring.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when we're basically, you mess with us and we're going to destroy you.
Yeah, we bring dignitaries from around the world to show how powerful we are, because to be America, we have to maintain that top of the food chain, and every country knows that. China knows that. Egypt knows that. Israel knows that. Russia knows that. Germany knows that. Every one of them. And the moment they can take us off of that top tier, especially one of the three superpowers, they're going to do it. And if the moon landing was fake, that's the greatest achievement in mankind to this day, still considered. If they could take that away from us, they would do it in a heartbeat, because it would immediately make us look like fucking fools. And this is why
so many
assumptions.
I say.
So is yours, though.
Assumption laden.
But so
yes, I agree.
Exactly.
I'm just I'm not saying.
But mine's more probable. Mine's more probable than yours.
You're just declaring that. You're just declaring that by fiat. You have no calculations to show that your scenario is more probable than mine.
Well, I don't see any calculations.
I'm not the one. I'm not the one that's claiming that my scenario is more probable. You're the one that's claiming that your scenario is more probable, and you should have a reason to believe that, but you don't. You just have some intuition that it's more probable.
Because I've been a part of that system. I understand the ideology that's involved.
That's just an anecdote. That's just an anecdote. That's just an anecdote.
What
have we capitulated to Russia about in that time since we've been to the moon? What have we capitulated to Russia with? What could they have been blackmailing us for?
I mean, look, like I said, I really would rather not go into this. This is all conjecture. This is all speculation. This has to do with material facts. And this is why I was wanting to have this discussion based around material facts, evidence that is on the official NASA website.
Fair enough.
And we could talk about this. We could talk about this till the pigs come home.
Fair enough. Here's the material fact. There are places on the moon that we're able to send beams up to that reflect off of. How did they get there?
Probes. I mean, do you really need the Russians did it before us. These retroreflectors, the corner reflectors, the Russians put them on the moon before we did.
We have reached the moon, in some capacity.
Yeah, I made that very clear in my opening statement that Mercury, Gemini, low Earth orbit, ISS. Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting a question mark on any of that stuff.
On the moon at any time? You think a human has been on the moon at any point?
I'm very skeptical of that proposition, because just the technological difference, the difficulty of putting electronics on the moon versus putting squishy meat bags that need a very set of a range of environment to live. The range of environment that a circuitry can survive in is much larger than that of a human being.
How do submarines work?
Different
if we can put
how do submarines work? How do we control the environment inside of a submarine and in the bottom of the ocean? I mean, it's the same. It's the same technology.
No, it's not. It's not.
Hey! Everybody, calm down. Hold that question, Team Skeptic, because I think that's a valid question. But if we can do the probes on the moon, if we can get them there, and we have people who are in the ISS right now. You said that you think that the ISS is a thing that's real. What's the stretch for putting them on the moon?
Well, like I said, I mean, it's just a totally different technical challenge. What, the ISS is 250 miles above our heads versus the moon being how many hundreds of thousands of miles?
We can get a probe there.
It's not even in the same ballpark. Not even in the
If
same
we can get a
ballpark.
probe there, though, why can't we just put people in it, send them over there? What's the big challenge?
I explained that the required environment, the kind of parameters that are life sustaining for humans are so narrow compared to the
we have
the
people on the
environmental
ISS.
parameters for
Yeah, there's people in space
the
already.
environmental parameters. So
I don't
just
see your
because we have
argument
people in
there.
low
We have
Earth,
people in
so just
space.
because we have people in low Earth orbit, therefore we went to the moon. That, like, what kind of logic is that?
What's different is the moon landing, like the moon's environment from being in low Earth orbit. You're already in space. What's so volatile on the moon?
I know.
Why is it that much?
Look, I'm talking about the danger profile and the risk profile is significantly different between the ISS and the moon.
What's the risk?
Well, I mean, being outside of the protective magnetic field of the Earth is one of them. That's just one.
Well, that's not an issue. No, that's a non-issue, dude. We time, distance, and shielding. We can
You really think that linen and mylar provide enough protection?
Well, there are also some medical components, but I mean, you got to realize that the ionization.
No, I'm talking about the Apollo. I'm talking about the Apollo suits that were made of alternating layers of linen and mylar.
Yeah, and what was their exposure time?
Was.
Again, what was their exposure time? And
some of the EVAs were well over an
hour. I got more exposure working around a nuclear reactor than they probably got. You know how much exposure you get traveling at 30,000 feet?
Let Team Skeptic ask.
I don't know. That's
Team Skeptic.
In an airplane? I mean, it's about the same, probably.
Team Skeptic.
Yeah. So my original question was, you claim that it's hard to maintain the atmosphere inside of it would be hard for them to maintain the atmosphere inside of the lunar lander and the spacesuits to get to the moon.
No.
You just said that. You said humans live in a very controlled environment and it'd be hard for them to maintain that environment. Oh my God. Okay, fine. We'll be pedantic about it for you. Okay, so they can do this on a submarine.
These are different words. They mean different things.
Please be quiet. Please be quiet.
Okay.
You said it's a completely different environment on the sub, which is completely wrong. But we'll go ahead and give that one to you, and we'll say, how can they do it for the people on the ISS?
I didn't say that either.
How can they do it for the people on the ISS? How is it a problem to maintain the environment for humans to live on a lander that goes to the moon, but it's not that hard for up at the ISS? No big deal.
Okay. So again, you mistook what I said. The environment in a submarine is similar to the environment on the ISS. So that's not what I said. I mean, what I said was that comparing a submarine to the Apollo moon landings, I don't think it's comparable. I said that they had different events.
So it was about the argument of the environment. So go ahead and start over. Make yourself clear then. What is your argument about the environment being a problem on for humans going to the moon to take the environment with us?
Versus electronics. Electronics are much hardier than humans.
But we can do that. Oh my God. Okay. What are you saying is the problem with taking the environment to the moon for a human to live in versus the ISS? What is the difference there? What are you talking about? You're talking about protecting the electronics from solar radiation. Is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about the protection from the magnetosphere or whatever?
Circuitry doesn't require oxygen or temperature control or any of these.
At
least temperature.
So you are talking about the environment for them to breathe. Why is it? How then can they get the environment on the ISS with no problem, but they would have problems sending it to the moon?
I'm not saying that there's a problem with what they're doing on the ISS. I'm just saying that there's a significant degree in difficulty difference between sending a unmanned probe to the moon versus sending fleshy meat bags to the moon.
Here's the thing, though, Ace. It is a lot safer for us to send a submarine down to Challenger Deep in the Marianas Trench to view that. But there have been humans that have also done the same thing. Just because yes, it may be safer to send one of those things down there, does not mean that humans can't go down there. You can, both of those things can be correct.
I got to tell you,
I mean,
think
look,
it's probably
this whole pass.
I think it's also more dangerous to me. I'd rather be in space than miles and miles underneath the ocean under significant amount of pressure. It to me, that scares the hell out of me. That's why I didn't become a submariner. But I mean, both conditions are not good. If something went wrong, you die instantly, pretty much either way. But the engineering factor is completely different. Being under high pressure, as opposed to being a rarefied, gaseous condition where there's not much atmosphere at all. I would not want to be down in the trench.
You're talking about 14 psi in a oxygen environment enclosed in space, which is next to nothing compared to what you're feeling at the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
Right. Two very different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but all of this again, this whole last 15 minutes, has mostly just been anecdotes, analogies, and conjectures, and none of it is relevant to the actual evidence that are provided.
Because you just keep saying on the evidence you provided, you just keep saying because it can happen, because it can. You didn't.
There is there to be had.
I'm just not convinced by two pictures.
No. It's just like I said, Skeptic made a bunch of really strange claims about these images that I made, completely all unjustified. I answered as many as they could, and Skeptic just keeps reasserting them as if they're fact, and it's just really strange to me that he's so certain of what he's saying.
But I'm not a professional photographer. I think a professional photographer.
You don't need to be a professional photographer to understand this argument. You don't need to be
Ace. Hold on, Ace. I want to address something, Ace. I had to point out to you that image was even altered. You didn't even know that. You just, as soon as I pointed it out.
How is that relevant?
Oh my God, because you have no idea. Hold on, hear me out. You have no idea whether that explanation you gave even matches the photo, because you didn't even know the photo was altered to begin with.
Look, Skeptic, you had no idea what my argument was. You had no idea what my argument was. You didn't even recognize the discontinuity.
I let you present your argument first. I let you present your argument first. I let you present your argument first. I had to point out to you that there were alterations done to the original photo, and then your answer was, of course, that can work. It obviously does. You don't know what you're talking about. How does this make a difference? You didn't even know that the fucking photo was altered to begin with, and you just ran with it because you know what? You probably have a good experience in debating, and you understand that you're not going to just say, well, damn, I didn't know that. And yeah, that is a possibility. You're here to win your point, but your point is moot because all the evidence you supplied, you didn't even know. You didn't even know it was altered. You didn't know it was altered. You sat here and admitted it yourself.
Again, how are the alterations?
So how are you so sure that your explanation? How are you so sure that your explanation of what I pointed out to you was so perfectly matches what we should see? Because it's your argument, and you need to have
my argument still stands even with these alterations. It's so robust.
Sure, because it has
these alterations that are done to the image.
It has to.
No, you don't. No, look, my argument. Listen, I gave you the room. Can I respond to you? Hello.
Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
So my observations about this pair of images are so robust that this discontinuity remains even through these kinds of alterations. So that there being alterations and this discontinuity still being visible is not any argument against my point. It's actually an argument for the robustness of my argument.
I disagree with you. I disagree vehemently, because all you did, you just said you had, okay, I know I'm repeating this, but I'm repeating this because it's a point. You didn't even know that they were altered. You haven't even taken the altered photos and said, hey, let me get back to you. Let me go check to make sure this matches my argument still. You just said.
I literally did. I even sent Kyle.
I had to tell you.
I even sent Kyle.
Oh, wow.
I sent Kyle a brand new GIF during this debate.
Okay, hold on. We'll put it up. Dave, put up unskewed.
I mean, look, I'm not. It took me. To be honest, I don't think it's necessary. I took like 30 seconds to make it, so it's not the
Oh,
best.
No, please play it.
It's not something.
just to see.
Well, either way, yeah.
So-
I mean, I don't care. Yeah. So these are, very quickly within 30 seconds, I just overlaid one photo on top of the other, and it looks even worse. It looks even worse for your case, Skeptic.
Dave, are you there?
But the whole, so I mean, you should
I
understand.
am
Skeptic,
here. I'm
that,
trying not to interrupt. That's
Yeah,
literally
just
my
pull it
whole
up there.
point. Is I've got to pull it up first. Hold on.
Well, I just want to say really quickly, you should understand that one of the fundamental measures of the robustness of an argument is the fact that it withstands permutations or adjustments. So if you can adjust the argument slightly and the argument still stands, it's considered to be a robust argument. So you're actually making my case for me, Skeptic.
I don't think your argument stands. That's what I'm telling you, is that you say you obviously see inconsistencies in there, right? Okay, so
Now, I never said
go ahead and explain.
inconsistency. I never said inconsistency. I said a discontinuity.
Okay, what discontinuity? You see a discontinuity. Okay, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, your image is playing.
Yeah.
Go ahead and explain.
Okay. So, well, look, that's the unskewed image. Look, I slapped that together in 30 seconds. I'm not saying that that's interesting at all. I would probably want to spend a bit more time refining that image. The point is that you still see that discontinuity there, even in that unskewed image.
Like
Quite
you
clear to
should.
see.
Like you should.
Like I.
Do you think that? Yeah.
Wait,
do
wait.
you-
Why?
hold on.
Why
Do you
would you
think that
expect
there's
a
no
discontinuity?
topography whatsoever? You're telling me there's no topography whatsoever. You're telling me for a fact you know that where you see that line that there's not a slight dip, even a slight one, just a little one, 2 feet down. You're telling me
Yes,
for a
I
fact
know
you
for a
know
fact.
that it does not go down whatsoever. Okay.
Yeah, I know for a
For a
fact.
fact, okay.
That's why I said.
Present
That's
it,
why
please.
I sent you.
Present me this. No, okay.
Okay, yeah,
No,
go
those
ahead.
are
Yeah,
topography
so
maps.
if
How
Dave,
far away are those topography lines? No, I'm saying like even if it okay, let's say it went down 1 meter and went for 10 meters and came back up. Okay, it's not going to show up on a topography map.
Yes, it would. If the topography map was
The
accurate
lines
to
in the
1 meter, it would definitely.
Well, yeah,
It
of
would
course,
definitely show
but not
that.
in the ones that you presented. Are they accurate to 1 meter?
I think
No,
the
they're
more
not.
detailed
No,
one
they're not.
is accurate to 2 meters.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
Let's see.
pretty.
Which
It's
one
pretty
is that
accurate.
one? Which one is that one? Because that would have to show 3,000 different points that it can be accurate. You have to show 3,000 lines in a 6-kilometer thing if it's accurate to 2 meters. You understand that, right? So let's pull up that image and see if there's
Well,
6,000 lines between.
no, wait. That's not the case because again, the lines demonstrate
Yes,
the change in altitude, and there isn't a significant change in altitude between the landing site and St. George. So no, you wouldn't
Okay.
you wouldn't expect.
All right. So
that many
can you show?
lines,
Can you
3,000
demonstrate how
lines.
that is a consistent slope up?
That image that was just up, that came from somebody in the live chat. It said
Those are
line
the
of
EVAs.
the line of discontinuity. Yeah, is the ridge,
Discontinuity.
giant channel between the landing site and the crater.
You mean Hadley's
Oh,
Rill?
that would be.
That's what's known as Hadley's Rill.
Yeah, so that's what he was saying. So that's what you're referring to, the discontinuity?
No, but see the problem with that hypothesis that the discontinuity is Hadley's Rill is that Hadley's Rill doesn't extend across the entire width of the image. So if you actually look at that image closely, you can actually see that discontinuity there's the legs of the lander, and that discontinuity persists and continues past the legs of the lander and into the body of the lander. So for that to be Hadley's Rill, you would actually have to show that that Hadley's Rill extends to. So that's an image looking to the southeast. So Hadley's Rill is to the southeast, and you have to show that Hadley's Rill would extend all the way to the southwest, which it doesn't. We can see that pretty clearly from the topological maps. That's that canyon, right? So he's saying that
It
the
does
canyon is
extend all the way
supposedly
across
what's.
the image.
Hmm?
It does extend all the way across the image.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right that discontinuity does extend across the image. However, Hadley's rill is only visible to the southwest, and it would have to extend
That'd
all
be
the
the
way to
right
the
side of
southeast
that's
because
the
that
right side of the relative of the photograph, right?
Yes. Yes, okay. and yes, and the discontinuity continues to the east, while Hadley's rill is only to the west. So that's a good shot.
I mean,
Whoever came up with that.
I'm looking at the photo and I'm still not even. It to me, it just does not. It's not showing what you say it's showing. I don't see where it's saying that where what we're looking at is showing with definitive proof that we're seeing this discontinuity across the ground that's due to the ground meeting a backdrop. It doesn't look that way.
Okay, so you finally settled on that position. Are you gonna flip flop again?
Okay, I finally settled on a word that you'll agree on. Yes. Okay, I haven't changed my position.
A position.
Hold on.
No, you have changed your position.
No, I have not changed my position because the whole time I said I see what you're looking at.
The recording will speak for itself.
Dude, listen, every time you say, do you see that? Do you see that? Yes, I see that in the ground, but what I don't see is what you see. What you see is a backdrop meeting the ground. I don't see that. And your evidence that you've provided that says, oh, look, this is absolute. No way to describe this except this way. And I say, look, did you even know that this had been changed? And you didn't. So, and then you go, oh, but that still explains it. You haven't even checked that. Go check it. Get back to us once you've checked it.
You keep bringing up that canard. That's just such a canard at this point. There was a skew in the image. Ooh.
Okay, but you didn't know that, and yet you still proclaimed as if you knew for a fact that was absolutely
who cares? Okay, let's just assume I didn't know that.
I do.
Look, Skeptic, watch this. Let's just assume I didn't know that, okay? Let's just assume for the sake of argument that I didn't know that. What does the skew of the image have anything to do with this discontinuity?
Oh my God. What the discontinuity you're pointing out. Okay, go ahead.
Is this going anywhere? My coffee's wearing out.
Look,
off right now.
I'm sorry. I'm stuck at this point that he can't explain. So
so Skeptic has jumped back and forth. So he said he didn't see the discontinuity, then he did see the discontinuity, but he doesn't believe me. Now he's back. He's now flip-flopped back to saying he doesn't see a discontinuity. So are you gonna flip-flop another time, Team Skeptic? I thought you were actually I thought you were actually prepared. No, look, the recording is going to speak for itself. The recording will show that you said that there wasn't a discontinuity.
Don't talk about being prepared. When I brought up, I pulled out
clearly
the
unprepared
file and showed how you were completely ignorant to the fact that
it was a poor example of preparation.
You're right. It was a very poor one that you stand by right now, saying yes, it absolutely can be a possibility.
You misunderstood what I said.
I'm saying demonstrate that. You were the one who came unprepared. I'm the one who went forth and went and downloaded the PSD from the author, the person that you said, hey, look at this, guys. I found this great GIF. Well, I went through and I found the PSD from the guy who made the GIF. And guess what? It shows something that you had no fucking clue about. So don't talk about who came prepared and who didn't. When you're the obvious one that doesn't know what you're talking about. Go demonstrate it. Come back to us once you demonstrate it. Go demonstrate it. Come back when you can demonstrate that is still something you should see, and we'll listen to you then. Until then, you're just unprepared, and you came into a fight.
It's just so
should have never gotten involved with. You're
like,
right.
It's
it
just
is
so sad. You keep bringing up that I didn't. You keep bringing up that I didn't know about that transformation, and I even told you. Let's assume that I didn't know about that transformation. What relevance does it have to the discontinuity? And you had nothing. You just rolled your eyes.
I told you. Inside. I told you it can absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, until you can demonstrate otherwise. That could be an artifact that's generated from fucking skewing the photo and then blinking between the two. Can you prove that I'm wrong?
Well, look.
Yes
yeah, I did. Look, at this point, this isn't going to go anywhere. I already explained to you why. I already explained to you why linear transformations cannot create nonlinear artifacts. You completely ignored that point, and you keep bringing up this old canard as if it's some fresh kind of argument. This is probably the fifth time that I explained to you that linear transformations cannot create nonlinear artifacts. And I've repeated this multiple times, and you keep ignoring that. It's just so sad. It's just you were completely unprepared for this, and it shows.
Okay. Sure.
Damn you, Team Skeptic. Damn you. Now the whole audience is convinced that we didn't go to the moon and the Earth is flat. The burden of the war was on.
Well, wait, the Earth is not flat. The Earth is not flat.
No,
it's round. It is round. I'm a blue baller. That's me.
I don't get anything Ace is saying. He says these words that maybe he's using them differently than my understanding of them, which I'll concede. But I'm not really seeing this argument too well. So
just as a fun side too, by the way, David Grimes, who is a professor at Oxford University, worked out a mathematical equation, and I think it's very interesting. He wanted to know how many people it would take, based on the number of employees that NASA had in 1965, to be able to keep or would have been involved in this cover-up, and based on the number of other scandals that have happened over the course of history, how many years it would take for that to leak, average. And his equation worked out that in 1965, there were 411,000 employees. So the people who would be directly involved with the moon mission, and anything like that, they would have to be impacted by this, worked out to 400,000. So you're talking about nearly 500,000 people would know this. Now, with that many people, it worked out that 3.68 is the number of years it would take for this to come out, and yet it's been over half a century.
Not a single person on their deathbed has ever said it. Not one person has said it's time for the world to know the truth.
Not that you know of. Not that you know of. And again, I mean, at this point, how could you say, given all the preponderance of the evidence that's out there? I mean, this particular piece of evidence and other evidences that I have that, like I said, I'm just not interested in going into at this point.
How can we take
you're just claiming you're just claiming, well, maybe we can do that some other time, but I mean, you're just claiming that the information isn't out there. You're just already begging the question right there by saying the information is not out there. When no, you're begging the question. No, because it is a question. It is a question of the evidence is out there that this was faked, and he's begging the question by saying that there is no evidence out there that proves
no. You're that's not how it is. You are claiming that this was faked. I don't think you put forth a very good argument for it. And now, granted, what Kyle has brought up is kind of a non sequitur your argument. I will kind of grant that, but it isn't irrelevant because your overall argument, even though is contingent upon those two photos, and that's all you seem to brought to the table, he's also bringing to the table extraneous evidence that would say, look, if it was the case that you were right, then it would require a hell of a lot of people over a hell of a lot of years keeping secret. We couldn't even keep a blowjob in the White House secret. You think that they're going to keep something like this secret?
Yeah, but again, I don't think that it is a secret in the way that I think that the information, if it is fake, which I have a pretty strong certainty that it is, that information's already out there, and you're just pretending that you're. It's like you're in this little bubble, and all you see is what's inside of your bubble.
Out there, where?
Okay, out there, where? Where do you find?
Well, like right here, like I said, right off the official NASA website. This is where these images are from.
Those hidden in plain sight.
Because you claim they're fake.
I was even being nice. I was even making your argument by saying it is possible that we still went to the moon, and that these images were corrupted so much so that they had to recreate them, and that these are just merely recreations. Yet we still went to the moon. I mean, I think that's a silly argument, but you could at least try to make that argument.
You're the one saying that they're wrong. You said they're fake. Yeah. What if you're wrong?
Yeah. What if you're wrong? I mean, do you think your analysis?
Well, wait. Okay. So look, they are fake. It's pretty clear from the images that mountain. No. Again, you can analyze these images. You can analyze.
Do you think it's possible that they're fake? I mean, not fake. Do you think that your analysis could be wrong? You're like, if they're wrong.
Well, look, yes, of course, I could be wrong. But what about my analysis?
The likelihood of you being wrong is what? For small, you think?
The likelihood of me being is small. Is very small. That my analysis of these images is wrong. I mean, what like I'm saying. I mean, what in
You haven't
my
truly
analysis
analyzed
could be
the
wrong?
images yet. No, hold on. You haven't truly analyzed the images yet. You've
Says
analyzed
you.
something somebody else.
Says you.
Hold on. No, you have not truly analyzed those images yet, because what you analyzed was a GIF that was made by somebody else that you decided was true. You were like, oh God, look what I see here in these two NASA images. This is proof with my eye of analysis. And you didn't even take the time to
I
look
never
at
said
the
it was
original
proof.
photos and see what was
Never
different.
once said it was proof.
Oh, evidence.
I never once said it was
Evidence to
proof.
support what you
Yeah.
evidence to support your position. You believe it's evidence to support your position. And I'm telling you, you didn't even truly analyze your evidence. How are you so positive that
Says
your
you.
evidence
Says
supports
you.
your position when you haven't even? No, you said it yourself in this live stream.
Because people like you make really poor counter arguments. That's why I'm so certain, is because I've talked to a large variety
My
of
counter
people
argument is I don't believe your
these
bullshit.
images.
Okay.
Look,
So
and the type of can I just finish really quick? Can I just
why isn't everyone on board with we didn't go to the moon? If your evidence is so overwhelmingly sure, why is everyone not accepted the fact that we have not gone to the moon?
I mean, cognitive dissonance. It's a
Yeah,
pretty
to what
easy
end,
one.
though?
I mean, people really want to believe that this is like the greatest achievement of mankind.
Or it is the greatest achievement of mankind. You need to also accept that possibility and look at it from that. Prove that it didn't happen. Don't prove it from your position. Prove it from that it couldn't be possible from the other position.
Look, what I'm actually putting forth is that these two images seem to indicate that they were not taken on the moon. Now, I'm not saying that this is proof positive that we didn't go to the moon, but what this is evidence of is that NASA made recreations of these supposed moments and then have posted them on their website, claiming that these are images from the moon when they are not.
And I'm saying that you need to reanalyze your evidence again from the other side.
What if I analyzed incorrectly?
Well, you've obviously analyzed incorrectly this time around, so go back and give it a second try.
I'm asking you,
maybe
what
your position
have
will
I
change.
analyzed incorrectly? I've asked you, what have I analyzed incorrectly?
You didn't even, bro.
Right.
You did not even analyze the original photos. You analyzed what somebody else created, and they altered the original photos. Go back.
Hang on, Ace. He's got we got to wrap this up, but he got a really good point there.
Yeah.
You did not do an analysis on the original photos. You did it on something else that did a GIF on it. That is a big thing to be brought out. I think that's a very valid point. Why didn't you use the original photos?
There's no reason. I mean, look, I could use that unskewed GIF that I sent was created from the original photos. There's no doubt in my mind. And
it's not even close.
Were those GIF photos cropped?
No doubt. Wait. There's no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt in my mind that if I myself, little old me, Ace, took Photoshop and imported those images and made a little GIF, that it would show the exact discontinuity that's in the Metabunk image. And I'm perfectly happy using other people's work that's independently constructed to make my point. I have no reason with reusing other people's work. What's wrong with that?
Well, again, you're not analyzing the source. You're analyzing somebody else's artist rendition.
I linked to you. I linked to the official images off the NASA website.
I agree. You gave me the official images, which was probably a mistake on your part, because I then knew that the images were altered. And no, you gave me the position to take that I knew the images were altered and you didn't. So your confidence is built on something that you were completely unaware of. You might have a false confidence there, and you need to approach it from that position.
Look, again, all this is completely irrelevant to the fact that there is a discontinuity in the parallax and that it's not explained by any of the topographic features that are known to be there. The Hadley's Rill thing, that little canyon to the side, that was an attempt, at least Skeptic, to explain that discontinuity, but you keep avoiding it.
I didn't avoid it. I did. 1 second.
Okay.
I didn't avoid it. I did address it. Go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
on, Kyle.
All right.
Super
Well,
chat.
I mean, if you guys want to wrap this up, I wouldn't
We need
be
to.
opposed to it.
I'll give you. I'm gonna read the super chats and then I'll let you guys make any sort of last minute statements to wrap up, that sort of thing. Okay. John Black said, I Googled Steve, principal dancer of London Ballet. Yes, there is that Steve. Steven Steen. Not Team Stupid again. Time to switch to Golden Girls reruns for the intelligent conversation. Sarah slaps chat. Your mom. Sadie 79. Are you gonna bathe in milk, Kyle? Maybe if the price is right. Flamio says GNU image manipulation program for the win. Awesome 519. It's not a brand of peanut butter idiots thing. I'm talking about GIF. Steven Steen. It's pronounced GIF. No, it's not Steven Steen. 2. Choosy developers choose GIF. Steve White, investor of GIF. Go home, Kyle. You're drunk. I'm actually not drunk. You're just incorrect. I know that's a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes we have to do that. Larry, Google walk to the moon to see the thousands of photos from Apollo at Arizona State University yourself. The Kerberoses. No humans have actually left the Earth's atmosphere because the atmosphere extends past the moon. By the way, I love you, Kyle. Don't forget about my Tracy idea. I love you as well. Fight the flat Earth. There was no face palm warning. Now I have a black eye. Brian G, could we please cut to the goddamn chase and ask Ace why the moon landings would be fake? What was the motivation and how did they get away with it? I think I asked that earlier. Hell's always said people need to realize that even if they could demonstrate that all imagery from space missions are in fact fake, doesn't mean they falsified missions. That does not logically follow. Right. Mikey says the flat Earth. Godless says these skeptics follow NASA like sheep. Yes, we do because they pay the bills. NASA shield check every month. Robert Williams, have you considered 80 millimeter lens on a 500 EL equals wide angle? Devil Dog 314, can we just see the original image, see that it does not have this line, and put this to rest? The images are linked in the description. Thomas Verdi says, ask Ace about the Russians blackmailing the U.S. into signing a nuclear arms treaty to keep the secret of the moon landing being fake. You want to address that?
That's just conjecture. I mean, I'm not, like I said, it's not evidence or anything. Just thoughts.
Roby P says, continuity equals the bulge in the terrain seen from 2 points of view. Mark Beiser says, if Ace was at all intellectually honest, he would see that his line of discontinuity is the edge of the Hadley-Ryle channel that is between the landing site and the crater.
Right.
You want to speak to that?
We already addressed that if that was the case, Hadley-Ryle would have to extend across to the southeast when it's only confined to the southwest. So that's a good try. I admit that is a good attempt at explaining that discontinuity, but I don't think it holds.
Okay. Thomas Verdi says, check out Tom Unboxes for fresh unboxing content. Very cool. I love unboxing channels. Brian G, okay, so they planned a mission that never happened using photographs from satellites and they got away with it. How? To what end?
Well, so you could imagine a scenario in which NASA had the most purest of intentions, where all of the engineers really, really wanted to go to the moon. None of them believed anything other than they would. And it could be just as simple. And again, this is conjecture. I'm not saying that I have evidence or anything of this, but just conjecturally, you could say all of these NASA engineers who pure-heartedly wanted to go to the moon were just thwarted by the fact that, say, one of the life preservation systems didn't work. I mean, maybe it was the oxygen scrubbers, maybe it was the radiation. It doesn't matter what the details are. Really, that's completely irrelevant to the point. So you could have a scenario in which These people genuinely wanted to go to the moon. They had only the purest of intentions, but were foiled by some minor detail of say the life preservation system. And at that point, JFK announced to the world that they would, we will do this and the other thing. We do things there not because they're easy, but because they're hard. We will go to the moon. So, and NASA had so much pressure to deliver on this that even though they gave their best shot, they were just foiled and thwarted by the fact that there are these problems with this admittedly experimental system that had never been fully tested. I mean, they were doing tests up to that point.
But
so there not need to be any malice on the part of NASA for this to develop organically and for the motivation to arise.
That is just conjecture as well. Just a guess, right?
All completely conjecture. Yeah.
All right. Brian G then follows that up with saying, "Why hasn't any other country raised hell about it? How could you let an opportunity to embarrass the U.S. slip like this?" We answered that earlier. Oflamio says, "Ace is a nerd sniper." XKCD 356.
Yes,
Bombay,
I am.
Bombay Skewspective. Devil Dog 314. Let Team Skeptic put forth a piece of evidence for why we did go to the moon. Do you want to do that very briefly, Team Skeptic?
I mean, as we discussed previously, I mean, there's like retro reflectors that are up there. The lander side has already been photographed by China, the Chinese rover, and not just the Chinese orbiter. I'm sorry, not the rover, but the orbiter. Not just the Chinese, but now there's been several countries that have actually gone up there and sent orbiters around. And these are enemies. Some of these are enemies of our state, and they would do. My same argument is still going to be valid. I mean, you can say that's conjecture. Yes, that's fine. That is conjecture. But I've also been in that position, and I do understand that if Russia had an opportunity to knock us down off of the high horse, they'd definitely take it. If China had the opportunity to do it, they'd definitely take it. They both have the opportunity to do it because they both send orbiters to the moon, and neither one of them can say that it's not there because it is there.
Okay. Herbert Lowell says, these kind of image analysis prove nothing. You need more images and less movement from the camera to at least try anything. Who's your atheist? Ace, be honest. You're a Poe. Also, Kyle's hair is beautiful. Thank you. Are you a Poe? Ace?
Okay, I will admit sometimes I am a Poe. Sometimes. But I'm not being a Poe today.
I know.
That's some honesty there.
I will say this: you are a contrarian, but I think that you actually do believe the conspiracy theory.
I have significant doubts about the Apollo mission, and I mean this pair of images is only one piece of evidence, but I think it's the most interesting piece of evidence.
Okay,
because you don't have to talk about like the Van Allen belts and the radiation and I mean that just goes over people's heads really easily.
There's a nuance between Poe and contrarian, but I know you were contrarian.
Yes, Roderick.
I am. I am.
He put an emoji up and said, "We all know what this means." Ash Scott said the question, Ace, was, "Do you have any other evidence?" Brian G. Russia never said it was fake. China, who has their own space program, never said they were fake. Brian Stevens, what he said is only true if P times A and P times B is less than 1. Sure.
He's talking about the lens parameters, and I mean maybe.
No, he's just talking about
probability. Look into that.
No, he's talking about probability there.
Probably. Oh, okay. Yeah,
you said that the product of the two must be less than the sun or than either one of them. But if they're both 100%, then the probabilities, and if they're both 0, it's also both 0. So.
Yeah.
And then Devil Dog 314. This could have been over a long time ago if you had started. If you had started the talk with the retro reflectors. Mike Mick says, as an Iraq veteran, Americans are very skeptical. Kuyasa, is it all that radiation that gave Steve his superpower of being super smug? That explains a lot. Fight the flat earth.
Damn right.
Did he say the ISS is similar to a fracking submarine? Ow, my face. Darren Martin, speeding model. Why didn't his big yellow ball fall down the 400-meter deep valley between the lander and the St. George crater. 0132-132. If this entire debate is about one gift, then Ace didn't bring nearly enough to the table. My unfinished journey, super chat with no message. Kuyasa, well, that's not true. 0132-132. Ace brought 2 picks and the snap, giggle, quip, dodge, snort with him as well. That's masterful debating for sure. My unfinished journey, Ace equals a Kruger expert. Bombay has Ace analyzed them in Photoshop. I hear Professor JM has a proven method in that. Shrift says you, Brady Beaver, tell the kid to lose the tux. Love you guys. DKG Custom, tell the shit images match reality. I checked. Xantar2482 says, ask Ace to define narcissistic personality disorder and how does it apply to him. And then Fat Photog says, Tom unboxes next YouTube sensation. Tom unboxes, man. You're getting a lot here. Joe Son Sneed.
Yeah.
Read Joe's again.
Well, so you know what was really interesting was a lot of this.
Hang on.
Oh, sorry.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
He cut out.
Joe said that's another puzzle piece, and then Jen Morgan says, Ace, you're completely wrong.
Good. I'm glad people disagree.
I like your suit. So.
Oh, but Steve, I wanted to say, I mean, I'm not a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian, because if that was the case, I would be a flat earther, but I'm not, right? I mean,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Take a couple seconds and let everybody know where they can follow both of you and your channels, that sort of thing. We'll start with Ace. Where can people find out more from you?
Okay. Well, so I don't really have a YouTube channel. I mean, I have a YouTube channel with some like programming tutorials for like programming languages that nobody really uses. So I'm not really a content maker, but if you are interested in debating with me, I frequent a Discord channel called Modus Ponens. So it's like Modus Modus Tollens, all that kind of stuff. It's the logical rules of inference, but it's with a P. So it's MODUS space PWNENS. Modus Ponens, like a ponu. So I'm in there frequently. So if you guys want to, maybe you can drop an invite link or something like that.
Trigger warning for people that have never been there. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yes. Oh yeah. Trigger. Yeah. Trigger warning. Yeah.
It's not for white belts.
Not. Yeah. It's not for white belts.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, you will.
Okay.
So yeah,
and
that's where you can find me.
Okay. Team Skeptic.
Yeah, again, Kyle, Steve, love both of you guys, man. I love being on the show. It's the best show on the fucking internet. Everybody, if you are not already subscribed to Steve McRae, please go subscribe to Steve McRae. He deserves more subscribers than the entire community added together. He helps me to understand my logical fallacies that I commit, and I'm not impervious to logical fallacies. Tonight, I do appreciate you, Ace. I felt like it was a good conversation,
really
even
nice.
if we disagreed. It's okay for us to have differing opinions and see things in different ways. I do want to say that I've tried to approach this from a very not from the position that we went to the moon, but just from the position of I don't know whether we did or we did not. Your position was to try to convince me, and I tried to look at it with a skeptical eye without having any presumptions about what the reality is. That's why at the beginning I said, hey, am I presenting evidence or am I just refuting yours or analyzing yours? And I don't feel like I'm convinced. I'd be more than willing to have the conversation ahead of time if you can prove that the transformations that occur in that photo are consistent with your assertion. Then I'd be more than happy to hear the argument. And, again, I appreciate the time on the non-sec, and I appreciate you, Ace. Have a good night.
Yeah, it was really nice. Thanks.
And let me get this last one that came through. Fat Photog says, and that's another puzzle piece. So there's
another puzzle piece.
All right.
There's another puzzle piece.
This is interesting. Thank you,
Very
team, for that shout out. I put the link to my channel in the video description.
Steve, do you have any anything that you need to put out there?
Yeah, right now, afterwards, if you guys are still craving for more talks and things going on, got about 7 people watching over at the Great Debate Community, which is a hidden kind of channel not many people know about, although it's got about 3,000 subs. David McGinnis and Cheshire Vid and a few other people are having a really interesting conversation over there. You want to go check it out. I put the link in the video description right now, and head over there after this because they may appreciate you listening. Because I'm going to be heading over there too because I was checking it out. That seems to be a pretty good conversation so far.
What are they talking about?
Bigotry. Interesting. When does criticism can become bigotry?
Got it.
Yeah, I get accused of that a lot, actually. In fact, on one of my previous videos, one of my recent videos that had got it's almost up to 100,000 views. It was done about a woman, and there were people that were like, "I can't believe you would talk to a woman like this," and I'm like, "I will talk to anybody like this. It's stupid. I don't care if they're a man, woman, black, white, gay, straight, whatever the case. If they say something stupid, I'm going to point out that they're saying something stupid. It's not sexism. It's not bigotry. It's not anything like that. It's simply an objective, or I guess it'd be a subjective opinion based on the stupidity of what was said."
Got you.
Fair enough.
Remember, guys, that if you are a patron of the channel, we will be having a private hangout tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can come in, and we're going to be talking about the upcoming Patreon week, where you're going to be people who are patrons of this channel are going to be able to do every day next week something different. We're going to finalize that all together on Saturday. I think it'll be a really cool time. So the link will be put out on Discord and Facebook and on the Patreon website. So you'll be able to check that and get the link to join us. That'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern on Saturday. Thank you for joining us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with Flat Earth Day night and maybe Why Am I Being Detained night, if it all works out. So keep your fingers crossed. And just remember, we here at NonSequitur, we're never driving, but we're always traveling.